Hey Liz,
Hey, Oleg.
have you ever had a breakup as embarrassing as the Elon Trump breakup?
No, I have not. Have you?
No, I mean, I haven't broken up with somebody on an international stage, dragged the Polish minister into it, and started complaining about my best buddy's drinking and drug habits.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes, that's true because we're adults. And this is technically a work separation. It's not even really a breakup because maybe for a breakup you could be emotional, but this doesn't make sense.
No, they need a mediator
They do. They
immediately.
do. Let's talk about it. So, our first story, like we alluded to in the intro, is going to be the Elon Trump breakup. Although, like we said, this is a work thing, so I don't even understand why it's getting this personal.
I mean, like many things, this could have been an email, or I guess presidents do memos. This could have been a memo.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, like, we all saw this coming. We all knew this was going to happen. I don't think anybody knew how messy and chaotic it would get because that's like the unique like superpower of Trump is that like you know what's going to happen. You just don't know how like spectacular of a wreck it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that we sort of knew, and people are saying right now, I sound like Trump. Many people are saying that Elon was removed from his role because of the arguing and fighting that he was starting within the administration. And there were lots of people within Trump's camp that did not like him. And then there's the people who thought he was a fake conservative. You know, just a lot of distrust in that group, and that is part of what led to him leaving. But when we talked about this last time, the message that we were being told was that Elon was leaving as planned, right? There was no insinuation that this was some kind of firing. The statement was, oh, his 130 days as a special advisor have come to an end, so he's leaving. And then we get this past week, and apparently he was let go because Trump was tired of him. I mean, who's telling the truth, right? They're both liars.
I mean, those two egos could not coexisted for very long, right? This was where it was always going to lead to, right? And you know, like it's insane how sort of much of a 180 has happened. You know, Elon has gone from saying that Trump was essentially the Messiah, right? He was less than what 5-6 months ago, actually no, 7 months ago, he was
Mm-hmm.
on stages like throwing salutes to his emperor,
His
and
emperor.
now he wants him to be impeached, um, and like this just feels very, very incoherent,
Mm-hmm.
like he's trying to insinuate as well that Trump has cognitive
Insinuate.
impairment.
That's funny. Insinuate.
Right, but I want to be like, but you also sound like cognitively disturbed, right? Like nobody enters into a venture with all of that zest and passion, and then 7-8 months later tell you, it's the worst thing ever, right? That's just not doesn't make sense.
I mean, I think we can all see we've been seeing the quote unquote cognitive decline. So I think what a lot of what Elon was posting was to me extremely obvious. You know, he said Trump is in the Epstein files. I mean, lots of people are probably in the Epstein files. That seems like a fact at this point, given that Trump and Epstein hung out. He said Trump's tariffs are going to lead to a recession. Well, duh, that's what all the economists have been saying for months. He said Trump is, cognitively declining. You've heard his rambling speeches. Is he all there? I don't believe so. But this is what I'm talking about. It's like he basically started repeating the things that people have been saying for months and months and months, wanted to get applause for it, did not get applause for it, and then started threatening a bunch of random shit, like pulling the Dragon, space program, which obviously a big part of America's space ambition relies on that, because that's pretty much how American astronauts get to the International Space Station, right? He like threatened that because of what Trump did. I just find it all so childish and so irresponsible, from multiple perspectives, right? First of all, these are two grown men arguing out in public like it's, a high school, and they're a bunch of teenagers who hate each other. That's lame.
I'm actually offended for teenagers. This is more like, those YouTube videos of like babies arguing with each other?
Babies arguing? Like, they can't even talk. How are they arguing? Yeah,
they're just like, ba, 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 like back and forth. Like, and there's no understanding. They're just like,
no,
talking at cross purposes. That's what this feels like. Because I feel like teenagers, there's something going on cognitively there. There's
sure.
nothing here.
Okay. Well, I didn't mean to offend America's teenagers, but some of them argue for dumb reasons. I'm so sorry, teenagers. I hope this is not breaking news to the teens. But some of y'all arguments don't make sense. This feels like one of those arguments that doesn't make sense. And also from a business perspective, you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. Do better. Like, the shares fell like 14% in one day. Insane to do that to yourself with your own stock. And then there's also the political angle. So did you hear the news that Elon was rumored? There were sprinklings and murmurs around that Elon was going to fund Democratic candidates to oppose Republicans and Trump. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't. But, this is classic, right? As you've alluded to, he's just trying to buy his way back. Whatever
side will welcome him, basically.
Exactly. Whatever side will welcome him, he's willing to, buy his way back in. It's just pathetic. He needs validation, and whatever validation he thought he was going to get from the MAGA Trump side, he's not getting it. And so he's going to go buy it elsewhere.
When Elon first talked about the bill, the spending bill, the budget bill being excessive, contributing to the deficit, other things that, again, people have been saying for weeks, but he finally figured out. When he said that, we were kind of like on social media saying, oh, this is going to be the beginning of his redemption arc. He's going to try and like get back in people's good graces. People were kind of dismissive of that idea in our comments. But look at that. By like Friday, like a few days later, all of a sudden there's rumblings that he's going to start funding Democrats. Now, Trump was asked about this in an interview he did with NBC over the weekend, so this weekend. He was asked about Elon saying he might start funding Democratic candidates, or the rumor about Elon funding Democrats to run against Republicans who vote for the bill. And Trump said, quote, if he does that, he'll have to pay the consequences for that. He'll have to pay very serious consequences if he does that. What are the consequences? Trump did not expand on that. But they also asked Trump, how does he feel about his relationship with Elon? Do you think the relationship is over? Do you want to repair it? And Trump said, no, I would assume so. My relationship with Elon is over. So I guess Elon won't be back for round 2 as special advisor to the president. Trump seems like a guy who holds grudges. Just my personal view on him.
I feel like we all know what the consequences would be, right? It would be the DOJ being...
all the 3-letter agencies would be all over all of Elon's companies, just, basically.
Sick them all on Elon. He might even deport him, which I know we have retired our unsolicited advice section.
It's not really retired. We haven't done it in a while, but if you want to throw some out there, if you want to throw unsolicited advice out there.
I do want to advise. Well, I wanted to say President Trump, but really Stephen Miller is in control of the immigration policies. Yes, deport Elon. Please deport Elon. I think there's just this unique opportunity to do something for bipartisan support, right? This is going to have unanimous support across the country. MAGA is over Elon now. They don't care. They think he's a traitor. Liberals still freaking hate him, right? You can unite the nation by like deporting this guy,
Oh,
right?
come on. I
Like,
mean, the conservative response to that will be that this is hypocritical, right? Elon is a US citizen. Yes, he outstayed his visa at some point, but he's now an American, and we don't deport Americans. So I'm going to be the voice of reason and say, don't deport Elon. What would be better for all of us, I think, is deep, lengthy, thorough investigations into all of his contracts. That's not deportation, but it will still probably lead to the same result, which is Elon going away so we can all just move on with our lives. This man has done irreparable damage to the country with Doge, which is still around, by the way, because we talked about this, Olu, right? Just because Elon is gone, Doge lives on and is still doing shit. But he brought that to us, and he shouldn't just be allowed to just walk away from that. But I think Tesla could benefit from some investigations. Like, they're always promising features they never deliver on. What's that about? What's going on with all those contracts he has with SpaceX and Starlink? When he withholds services from certain people, even though he's getting government money, does that make sense? We can do real legal things to make life uncomfortable for Elon. We don't have to deport him. So I'm gonna go with the pragmatic approach here, Olu.
okay, we do not agree on the reasoning, right? Like, it's not my position, right, that naturalized citizens should be deported. This is the
Mm-hmm.
official position of the administration. According to Marco Rubio, like, they reserve the privilege to deport people whether they're here legally or not, and whether they're naturalized or not. Like, as far as they're concerned, this is a privilege. Okay, so like, I'm
Sure.
not gonna be arguing, this in court. I'm just saying, like, there's just a chance to do something very funny,
You're just
and I,
asking questions, right?
I'm just asking
You're
questions.
just asking
I just want to
questions.
see it play out. Like,
You just want
let,
to see something.
let
That's all.
let's just see something. Like,
Yeah.
let's see
Let's
where
just
this goes.
let's
Like,
let's check. Let's try it. Let's try it and
it
see what
could be the
happens.
first deportation to space. Like, think about
He does want to
it.
occupy Mars. Let's send him early.
I feel
That's
like
fair.
this could work. You like just don't send him back to South Africa. That's all I am gonna say. Like,
Oh my God,
send him
he
back to
would
space. It's gonna
send
be
him to
amazing.
space. He's never been, so that might be a good journey for him. He might learn something. But speaking of deportation, horrendous segue. But we are going to move to our next topic, which is about deportation, but specifically about ICE and DHS in general. Things have been happening the last few weeks. I think, I mean, I don't want to say that this is definitive, but I feel like it started a few weeks ago in Worcester, Massachusetts, when a woman was being forcefully detained and deported, and like the local police got involved with DHS, but her entire street came out, and it became sort of a mess where the neighbors were shouting and yelling at ICE agents and police to get out of the neighborhood, and they were trying to take this woman away, and she had a daughter who was crying, and it was just very chaotic. But ever since that story a few weeks ago, we have been seeing more and more stories of in cities and towns across America, all over the country, where ICE agents and DHS agents are being met with resistance. And that seems to be happening more often. Culminating in this week, there were massive, massive protests in LA where thousands of people actually marched the streets and moved to sort of surround the ICE detention center in LA. There's been more reports of that over the weekend, with more protests continuing and DHS agents actually getting involved. And there was a story about them, one of their cars running over protesters. So it seems like it's escalating. It seems like an escalation. And people are really trying to push back on ICE and their deportation raids.
Yes, and it's going on as we speak. We are recording on a Saturday, and we're seeing the videos, still coming in. I mean, these people, they look like they're going into like a war zone, right? They have guns drawn. They are
Mm-hmm.
rolling in like armored tankers, with like, I don't know what the thing that protrudes out of them are called, but like it just looks like, I don't know, like, I haven't seen Batman in a long time, but like the climatic end of Batman where everything is destroyed, like that's
You
what
mean the
it
Dark Knight?
looks
Yeah.
like. The
Yeah.
Dark Knight, like it looks dystopian to a degree that I would just have never anticipated. Like these are neighborhoods, right? These like fashion districts and like restaurant districts. To see this kind of like tankers rolling through those areas, I mean, what are we doing? What message are we sending across the world? Like these are images that we see from countries that we consider not to be democracies, and we're doing that same thing right here.
Yeah, it's interesting too where they're choosing to do this, right? The what's happening is they went into multiple businesses around LA in one day, arrested about 40 people who they suspect are violating immigration rules or for obstruction if they got in the way. And over the past few days, they've arrested over 100 people in LA specifically. And they are going in, and the mayor of LA has, publicly tweeted and said she doesn't stand for this. She doesn't support this. This is a city of immigrants. She's very angry at what's happening because they're making it look like, civil unrest is happening. Here's what I struggle with. As I keep saying on the podcast, we are 6 months into Trump's presidency. 6 months. It has not even been a full fucking year. And already there's unrest in the streets. And if this continues, we really may end up in a summer 2020 situation with frequent protests in streets, police clashing, or DHS clashing with locals. I don't want that. I really don't, because there's so much opportunity there for really bad things to happen. These DHS agents you see, they are not well trained like the police. And I'm using the words well trained there. I know there are people who don't even believe the police are well trained. So that should tell you something about the DHS ICE agents. If the police cannot successfully handle civil unrest and protests, the ICE agents definitely cannot successfully handle civil unrest. This is not their job, okay? And I cannot stress enough how concerned I am that something bad is going to happen as we have more of these clashes, because DHS, Kristi Noem's DHS, is basically turning into some weird version of secret police. Like, it really feels like we're in a 1940s movie, and, they're just disappearing people off streets. And it's a little disturbing. It's not even a little, it's a lot disturbing. And it should be disturbing to anyone who is a thinking person. This is not normal. This is not okay. And these clashes are going to keep getting worse if something isn't done. DHS does not seem concerned at all. They seem like they relish this. They love all of this attention. Maybe because it makes Trump see that they're doing their jobs. I don't know.
I agree. I mean, as you've noted, they can't handle it, and there have been reports that local police and other agents, such as FBI agents, have to help them and have been helping them. I struggle to understand what the end goal is here, because this is what oftentimes happens where people are trying to protest and push back, and it starts out peacefully and it starts out in an organized manner. But these armed people come in, they throw flashbangs, which they've been doing. They throw tear gas, right? They start attacking people who are peacefully gathering around them, either recording them or just like standing there using their civil rights to stand there and block things from happening. And as you said, this is going to escalate, right? This is going to escalate into violence. And unfortunately, our current administration doesn't care. They only care to essentially put out these images of oppressive power. They're getting off on these images.
They are. They love it with the masks and the guns and the deputized agents with the vests, and they feel like they're being really cool. I don't know. It looks ridiculous. They look ridiculous. These are neighborhoods in the US that they're treating like war zones when they come in. And these protesters are trying to be peaceful. They're exercising their civil rights to block what they don't want to happen. And then my concern is that in doing that, there will be an escalation from the DHS agents because those people don't know what they're doing. I don't see how this makes sense. The other part of this that is interesting is the deportation flights that are happening, right? We actually got a story this week that when we talked about it, there was a little bit of what's the word? Is the Schadenfreude, like that word. Let me
Also
read the
known as
story.
leopard ate my face.
Sure, let's call it that. Leopards ate my face for the new age, but Schadenfreude, if you're a Broadway fan, you've seen Avenue Q, the play. So there's a story that came out this week about a group of migrants who were supposed to be flown to South Sudan. These people are not from South Sudan. The U.S. was deporting them to South Sudan the same way they're deporting people to El Salvador because they can, and South Sudan agreed. But midway through the flight, there was a judge who struck down the order, said they cannot send people to random-ass countries. No offense, South Sudan, I'm just saying. We can't send people to strange places where they're not from as part of deportation. So that plane had to be rerouted because of the federal judge. And the plane landed at a U.S. military base in Djibouti, which is a country in East Africa, for those who don't know. And while the case is being adjudicated and heard through the courts, it's gone all the way to the Supreme Court that could issue a ruling at any time. These immigrants that were supposed to be deported are stuck in Djibouti. But not only are they stuck, the ICE agents that flew with them on the plane are also stuck in Djibouti. And some of them are getting sick because, for them, they were going to do a quick round trip flight, U.S. to South Sudan, drop these people off, come back home. That was the plan. But now they've been there for days and days and days while the case makes its way through the courts. And when I heard this news, I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this information. Like, is it funny? Is it sad? How should I react to this? This is what's happening.
I am just sorry, that their Instagram travel plans to Djibouti didn't work out.
Well, they were going to South Sudan, so now they're in Djibouti, which was not planned. Yes.
But, this is the thing, right? Like, these people are cosplaying as if they're fighting a war, right? Like, Djibouti and South Sudan are in East Africa. These places are hot as hell. These places are still developing countries. They still have issues such as communicable diseases. They still have issues such as terrorism, right?
Yep.
You have some newbie who's, being like lapping on, I don't know, 8chan or whatever as a big guy. He signs up for work at the DHS and ICE, and suddenly he's in Djibouti where there's like lack of potable water, right? Like, this is the problem when you have a government being run by men who have this weird Rambo fantasy, and life is not like that. Sometimes you end up in Djibouti.
That needs to be on a shirt. Life isn't like that. Sometimes you just end up in Djibouti. That's for ICE. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks they've been there. That's 2 weeks longer than they plan to be there. The report said that the conditions are really, really bad. It's 11 ICE officers who were assigned to guard the deportees on the plane. They've been working 12-hour shifts because they have to, even though they're on a U.S. military base, the U.S. military was not planning for this, So the ICE agents have to be working these shifts to keep their deportees in custody and care for them for prolonged periods of time. The temperature is routinely over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The deportees are in a conference room because, again, they were not supposed to be at a U.S. military base, and you will not have the U.S. military have a bunch of deportees hanging around a base, like wandering around. It's not a vacation spot. It's just a mess. And this could all have been avoided if, it's very simple. Don't deport people to random countries. So many steps were missed because DHS is being run by Kristi Noem, previous star of the podcast, who we all know from murdering her dog. It's just a mess. And the other thing that's been happening at DHS, on top of all the other, shit, their funding. DHS is part of the US government, for those who don't know, and they have a budget that they are exceeding, basically. Some people say they're close, some people say they're over it. Either way, all of these stunts, all these trips, all these deputizing people to go raid businesses in a city, all of that costs money. They did not have a very large budget to begin with, and Kristi Noem is basically overspending right now because we're still on the old budget because they haven't passed a new one. And it doesn't seem like anyone is trying to stop her. Can you imagine like the Department of Education trying to overspend because they want to give, I don't know, more student loans out? People would not be okay with this. Republicans would not be okay with this, but somehow this is okay.
Absolutely. And just to give people context about this, the only reason why we know about the Djibouti stuff is because ICE itself is using this as an example of why they should be funded more, right? An associate director at ICE is the one who submitted this report to say, oh, look at what my ICE agents are going through. So nobody's even thinking about what the actual 8 migrants that they're trying to deport are going through. They're being boiled alive in a 100-degree Fahrenheit weather. Like, I just looked it up. The average temperature in Djibouti today is 108 degrees, right? Like, that's insane.
That sounds fun, yeah. And it's probably night there, too. So it's like 108 degrees at night.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. And the problem here is that this is not being used as an example of why we should not be doing this at all. This is actually being used as an example of why we should fund more of this and just like, I don't know, put in an air conditioner in the container next time. This is insane that this is what we're doing as a civilized society.
In addition to trying to raise the budget for things like these deportations, while doing that, they're also suggesting taking money away from real important parts of Homeland Security. For example, the cybersecurity, the acronym is CISA, but it's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Cybersecurity seems very important in this age of technology, right? Infrastructure security seems very important so people don't like hack the grid, hack your water supply. I don't know, hack your hospitals. These things seem very important, and we're going to take money away from there to do things like fund deportation flights for 12 migrants. I just don't understand how this government is planning to run. DHS is a department that already has a sketchy reputation with the general public because of some of the agencies underneath it. And then to have them take money away from somewhere that's actually doing a good job, cybersecurity, to go do this, that is wild to me. That's wild. And it's again, more incompetence from the people Trump has put in charge. Deportation Barbie would rather spend money on running ads to tell us what a great job she's doing and sending people for photo ops at prisons where we're mistreating immigrants or sending people to countries they're not from in the name of deportation. We're doing all of this while we're ignoring the parts that actually need focus within DHS. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's government by photo op, right? Because there's no there. Apparently, their goal is to deport 3,000 people per day, and they're only deporting about 1,000 people per day. So they're nowhere near their goal, and they've spent so much money already, and they're trying to spend even more money. And the other problem is that they were not able to deport these people to their home countries because, well, the home countries don't want to accept them because there has to be due process. You can't just deport people, right? And that's why they're choosing places like South Sudan, where those countries are poor and can't push back, right? You can't just come dump people on Mexico. They still have some power and they can push back against you. And that's what is going on right now, where there's no plan, there is no coherence, there is no sense of, okay, let's even plan for a long-term future. They just want to get the photo up now. They just want to get the headlines now. And that's why this rash decision was made. And that's why people, including American citizens who are ICE agents, are stuck in a arid tropical country. It's just
Yes.
insane.
I know, and I want to say like no shade to Djibouti or South Sudan, but you know, it is factual that it's very hot in these places. And these again, these deportees are not from these places. So why are we sending them there? The other topic we wanted to discuss today was about an article that was published in Quartz Magazine, which is an online sort of business news publication that detailed how a small change in the 2017 tax bill. So this is from Trump's first term, the TCJA, as it's called, has been an accelerant or a contributor, a major contributor to the tech layoffs that have been happening the last couple of years. I wanted to talk about this because I think that there's a general perception in the US that some of the best paying jobs, like if you're not going to be a doctor or, a high paid lawyer or something, tech is an industry that America is very proud of. And recently, over the last 2+ years, there have been significant, very public layoffs. Almost 500,000 people have been laid off from this industry that, while important, like compared to the grand scheme of things, was not necessarily large, but had very high paying, well paying jobs. A lot of people were telling their kids, go to college, get a computer science degree, go be an engineer, you'll earn a lot of money. And so I thought this was interesting. I wanted to bring it up on the podcast because I think it's worth understanding how sometimes things immediately don't have an impact, but then have massive, far-reaching consequences. So in 2017, when Trump's tax plan kicked in, the TCJA had a section called Section 174 that revoked a decades-long tax break in U.S. tax law. So for almost 70 years, American companies who did research and development to build new tech could deduct 100% of that spending in the year that they spent it. So the salaries for engineers or product managers or tech people, all of that was deductible the year you hired or paid those salaries, because it was viewed as contributing to R&D, research and development, to drive innovation, to create new tech. And you can say how you feel about tech companies, but those companies were bolstered in part by this tax deduction that allowed them to claim deductions for their engineer salaries, their product manager salaries, their marketing, etc. salaries. But then in 2017, Trump placed a provision that removed that deduction starting in 2022. And almost immediately, starting in 2022, all of a sudden, tech companies, even though they were posting record profits, began to do layoffs. People think it's mostly because of AI. It turns out, according to this investigation, that's not the case. While AI might be playing a role in some of the tech layoffs, the reality is these companies are trying to lower the expenses because they're no longer getting this deduction that Trump took away. And this deduction is what allowed massive tech companies to grow in the U.S., hire in the U.S., call it R&D, and get a tax deduction. Trump killed that. And now the Republicans and Democrats are trying to put that back into the new spending bill because they have seen and heard the negative impact it has been having on the economy, on these companies, on people's jobs. And I just wanted to bring it up because it's something that not a lot of people are talking about. It's 100% Trump's fault because this was something that had been in place for 70 years until Republicans took it out.
Yeah, I mean, where Republicans get the good for business label from, I don't know. It's just as baffling as their good for law and order reputation. This is a tax write-off that businesses were taking advantage of and using to employ people. And now he's taking it away. And shocker, just like tariffs, you tax something or you remove a benefit, and guess what? People are going to lose their jobs over it, or lose their salaries over it. What I find interesting, however, is the timeline. Like, he did this in 2017, but then it didn't kick in until 2022. And I just want to highlight that for our listeners, okay? Like, this is how it is. Like, you just cannot afford to waste your vote, not even for 2 years, not even just for
Nope.
4 years, right? Because, like, this is what is going to happen many, many years down the line. You and the people you know will be dealing with this, right? Um, but I can't let this go without throwing some shade on these companies as well. Okay, like the dirty secret about R&D is that like the taxpayers, we fund R&D all of the time, either through tax cuts or from our tax revenue being used specifically to fund R&D, like innovation research, right? And I just noticed that, like, despite posting record profits, right, these companies still
Doing
fired people. They
layoffs. Yep.
fired the software engineers and all of those people who are essential to where their companies are right now. And it is just so easy to blame the government all of the time. There's stories in places like Quartz or Business Insider or the Wall Street Journal. None of those people ask, okay, follow-up question, but why are you laying off these people if, you still like have jobs for them to do and you're not, losing money? Like, I just don't understand.
And to your point about the Republicans and how they did this, it's so sneaky. It's so sneaky, so aggravating, because they're doing this again. So what they did in 2017 was the part that everyone heard about TCJA that was super popular was that they had lowered the corporate tax rate, right? That was the big takeaway people had from TCJA. They lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. But because they lowered the corporate tax rate, the government was losing out on tax revenue. So to make up for that, they took away this deduction, basically, well, not took it away, but they reduced the deduction from, 100% in the same year to like 5 to 20% per year. So they basically increased the amount of money they were collecting from the companies in one place and then publicly harped on and on about reducing the corporate tax rate. That's why they did this. They did it in 2017, and then it didn't kick in for 5 years, so that most of the people who passed it might not even still be in office at that point, right? So they wouldn't be the ones dealing with the fallout. That's the same thing that's happening with Trump's new budget plan. In the first couple of years of Trump's new budget, everyone gets a tax cut. Everybody. How they're going to pay for it, TBD, but everyone gets a tax cut effectively. But then 2-3 years down the line, after midterms, all of a sudden, poor people's taxes start going up, the middle class's taxes start going up, but rich people's taxes stay low. That's what Republicans are doing again, and people are letting this happen again. It's so frustrating to watch.
Yeah, and it's a cynical move, right? Because they're timing it so that they can blame if Democrats win, whether they win the Congress or presidency, so they can blame that on Democrats. And this is why you can't afford to have like the attention span of a goldfish with these things. You have to be able to follow them longitudinally, and like, no shade, but shade. Like, I hope a lot of people who have, great jobs understand that those jobs are there. We used to say by the grace of God, but a lot of jobs are there by the grace of the government, right? Like, we all think that we're bootstrapping ourselves. We went to the best schools or whatever, or, we're just like very, very good at street smarts and, we built that construction company by ourselves. Whatever it is that you think, at the end of the day, you just need to pull a tiny thread and you see that it all leads to the government, right? Like, you work in a hospital. Well, a federal government grant opened the hospital, right? You operate a farm. Well, the government is subsidizing your soybeans. Like, whatever it is, there's some way in which the government is contributing to your success. That's just the end of it, right? And let's just stop pretending like we're all just doing it by the sheer skin of our teeth.
The sure skin of our teeth. I agree. And that's definitely a vibe or a feeling that you get from tech companies, especially. There's a sense that, like, oh, we built this ourselves. You know, to Elon, which is our topic earlier in the podcast, there's a sense that, like, he built all of this by himself. But then if you dig in a little bit, you'll discover that there's a very unique combination of circumstances that only America offered at the time that allowed this to happen. It wasn't just Elon. It wasn't just Jeff Bezos. You know, there were things, there were systems in place, tax laws in place, rules in place to spur innovation, to give them funding, to give them loans, to get them VC money. There were so many little things. I mean, they seem little, but so many things went into creating these gigantic corporations that are now today, some would say, ruining America. It is so lame, so lame when you realize how much they owe their success to the US government to now see them, people like Elon, taking apart the system that made them. I cannot stress enough how unsuccessful some of these companies might have been without the help of the US government. You know, it's not even just money. It's like the infrastructure, the roads, the electricity, the internet. There are so many things America had going for it in the late 90s, early 2000s that allowed these massive tech companies to be successful, that were all funded by US taxpayers. And we forget that sometimes. And people think they did it by themselves. They did not.
I agree. And, that is why we should all vote for the society we want and understand that we're all doing it collectively. You're not building your life outside of somebody else's lives. These decisions we're making are affecting all of us. And it's just feels like such a bleak time to be watching American politics right now, where it feels like all of that is just being torn to shreds. Nobody cares that a hairdresser is being deported because whatever, we believe that they're illegal and they deserve to be deported. But those people do contribute to our lives, right? And the idea that we're just going to watch as all of them are being dehumanized and think that that's not going to affect our lives is just a lie that you're telling yourselves.
Yeah, and back to the immigration topic real quick, because I think this hits home for us, the two of us on this podcast, maybe a little differently than the typical American, right? Our families did not, quote, start here. And so it is very important for us that U.S. immigration remains a system that makes sense for America as well, but also for immigrants. We cannot say that the immigration to the U.S. has been a negative. I know there are studies out there that conservatives like to quote and say, oh, immigrants cost this, they cost that. They are net contributors to the success of this country, financially, culturally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. In fact, I'm pretty sure Trump owes some of the states he won, like a Florida, to immigration. So even if you're a conservative, it is a positive thing to have migrants, immigrants in this country overall. There are obviously going to be bad apples. I will give y'all that. There are people who commit crimes. I'm not saying every immigrant is a saint, just like every American is not a saint. But net positive contributor to U.S. growth and success. And to see what's happening today with immigration especially is really sad for me. I might laugh, might joke about it, but it is very sad because my family owes its success in the U.S. to the U.S. immigration system. I know that's the same for Olu. It would be irresponsible of us as a country to deport everyone, which I know is what the conservatives want to do. That's impossible and also dumb. And so I think that's why this hits a little differently. And I really do applaud the people who are protesting in LA, in cities across the country. DHS and ICE know they're not doing the right thing. That's why they keep showing up in masks. But let's not make it easy for them.
Yes, and we've been talking mostly about people who are still working on their papers, but we should also note that some of them are being arrested and deported while they're legally going through the process, right? Like there's this cynical thing that is being done where you're not even allowing them to go through the legal process. You're just deporting them. And then we just have the blanket ban on all like student visas, like all of the categories, F1, J1, H1, whatever it is, including the types of visas that got Elon Musk himself into this country and got even Melania Trump into this country, right? Like, what are we doing, right? The brain gain that the United States has received over decades actually since its inception, right? It's just been that way that people, physicists, all sorts of Nobel Prize winners, everybody moves here specifically because this country attracts that talent. And we're stopping even that, right? Like if you're conservative and you're saying, okay, I don't want illegal immigrants, well, what do you have to say about just like a blanket pause to all student and scholarship visas? That's insane.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the issue, right, with this administration is they're doing things that are going to have far-reaching consequences beyond them leaving office. We've talked about Elon and his legacy in the government. What is Trump's legacy going to be, right? This tax deduction that we just talked about, it's a small thing. It's having a large impact on one industry, but it's a massive impact. And this is something that was done 8 years ago. What is going to be the impact of what Trump is doing today in 2025 in 8 years, in 2033? Does China put a man on Mars before the U.S. because of stuff Trump is doing today? Those are the kinds of, that seems silly, right? But this is the kind of thing that's going to happen because of the things that he's doing right now. And nobody seems to be thinking about that.
I agree. And I feel like we're going to be talking about this again and again, because as you just said, it's only been 6 months and I'm so exhausted.
It's so exhausting. I cannot believe that. I'm just, I got to take a deep breath because I don't know if I can do 3.5 more years of this, y'all. Well, you know what? Like you said in an earlier episode, we got to root for the midterms. And hopefully if we get the midterms, if the Democrats win, nothing will get done for 2 more years. And at this point, I would take that over what's happening right now. That may sound counterproductive, but if we could just get the Democrats to get the House and the Senate back and they actually stick to their guns, I'm okay with just like 2 straight years of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer harassing Trump and nothing being done. I'm okay with that. And then we could just see what happens in the general election. At this point, I will take a stagnant Congress over whatever the fuck is going on right now.
I mean, that's because you're good at logic, right? 0 is better than negative, right? Like I don't
That's
know.
True. That's just math.
Nothing. That's just like straightforward, straightforward logic, which we're going to keep pleading for people to use going forward. Just use your logic. These are your options. There are no ideals. These are the options right in front of you. We believe in you. We believe in you. We know that you can reason your way through this. Okay, like just pick what's better. That's it. There's no best.
That's really
no
it.
Ideal.
There's no best. There's no ideal. It's just the not bad, basically, or not as bad. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Liber Banter. We've been your hosts, Liz and Olu. We want to wish our listeners a very happy summer. We hope you go out there and enjoy all summer has to bring. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye now.